Hey mamas, and welcome to the Entering Motherhood podcast. This is your one-stop go-to place for getting you from feeling drained, exhausted, and unfulfilled in motherhood to feeling more energized, organized, and accomplished. That's the vision I continue to navigate towards, and that's the vision we are sharing with you, focusing on holistic alternatives and restructuring your mind, body, and soul from the inside out. I'm your host, Sarah Marie Bilger, a wife, mom of two, mechanical engineer, VBAC mom, and doula, serving mamas through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. If you're here for this, if you're as pumped up as I am and searching for that fire that you know is deep inside of you, then let's go. Let's uncover what it truly means to enter motherhood. You are a rock star. I believe in you. Let's doula this. Let's crank it up a notch and let's kick it into high gear together. Hey mamas, and welcome to another week of Entering Motherhood. Before we get started with this episode, I just wanted to say I am so thankful that you are listening in and utilizing these episodes, but I would really appreciate it if you could think about leaving a review and a rating for the show, and maybe even share it with a friend, because if you found us, I am so glad that you're here and that you are listening in. But by doing that, it will help boost the show up so that other mamas can find this information as well. And you would be helping out another mom along her journey into motherhood. So this episode is going to be questions to ask your doula. And with looking for a doula, I think it's really important to understand what questions you want to ask them, what questions you should be asking them. And it's really good to start with some generic questions that you might want to know, but really shouldn't have to be asking your doula, because we're going to talk about it right here and we're going to get that covered so that you feel ready when you are going and looking for a doula. And these are just some things that you really don't have to discuss, and you can jump into the other questions and really get to know them in different ways. So starting off super basic, what is a doula? You know, maybe you've heard some friends talk about it, maybe you've thought about it, but you're really not sure even what a doula is. So a doula is someone who's trained and experienced in whatever specialty they have, and they are providing emotional and physical and even informational support to individuals and families during their pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum periods. And there are basically two main types of doulas. They are going to be your birth doula or postpartum doula. And there are some different variations and other different types. Like me specifically, I am also a VBAC doula. There are different certifications and trainings and different ways that they can be established or have experience in. So that is essentially what a doula is. And also, it's really important to understand that doulas do not provide medical or any sort of type of clinical care. So, in other words, they are not a medical professional, and instead, they're really meant to complement the care that a provider or a healthcare establishment is able to give you. You know, someone such as a doctor or a midwife, the nurses. This person, a doula, is really there to offer continuous emotional support and provide you with evidence-based information. The doula is going to be a person that is aware of your personal choices, is supporting those choices, and is really helping you feel empowered and confident through pregnancy, childbirth, and even into the postpartum period. So another question you might have is, why is it helpful to have a doula? And what are they actually doing? How are they providing physical, emotional care to you? And so there have been numerous studies showing that having a doula present during labor can really lead to more positive outcomes and also reduce the rates of medical interventions. They help shorten labor. They really increase the satisfaction with a birthing experience. And it can also improve breastfeeding success and just overall emotional outcome of the experience. So, really having a doula benefits far beyond just the physical aspects, and it really provides invaluable emotional and psychological support during this time in your life. And we're doing this through, maybe different workbooks or activities or conversations or asking you questions or providing hands-on physical support, going through a lot of mindset and really establishing that relationship with you so that you're feeling empowered and that you're feeling, confident in every decision that you are making and that you feel like you are super aware of all of the options that you have. And another question you might be wondering that maybe isn't something to specifically ask your doula, but it's good to know is when to hire a doula. And honestly, this really depends on one, your area and what it's like in the scheduling process for specific doulas, or even just, establishing, getting to know different doulas in your area, or how much time you want to spend interviewing them, or what that process looks like. Also, just how involved do you want them to be along your journey? Do you want this to be someone who knows you really well and has been going through a lot of the steps with you? Do you want it to be someone who's guiding you not only through birth, but also pregnancy and everything that can come with that? And what you can be doing, specifically if you're going for a VBAC, I think it's super important to also be recovering from your cesarean and making sure that your scar is healed, and to be doing things a couple weeks in advance at least to really be preparing all parts of you, emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever, to be able to fully establish a system to be going into your birth, knowing as much as you can know and feeling as confident as you can be. So maybe even just starting the search process early can be super beneficial. And if you listened to the previous episode, we talked about building your birth team and really establishing that. So having a doula can actually help you build more of your birth team. We can even help you determine what providers are going to be more in alignment with the type of birth that you want to have. Or we can find chiropractors in the area that are going to help you. We can find a pelvic floor therapist that's going to help you. We can find different forms of care and resources to help you along your journey. So really hiring a doula is doing a lot of personal work with you, for you, and understanding what you want out of a doula can really help establish when to be hiring a doula in your journey. So once you really understand a lot of that and you know what is a doula, what isn't a doula, what they're going to help you with, when to be hiring them, we can get going with what I would say is the top 5 questions you should really be asking your doula when you are interviewing potential doulas. And I do think it's great to search for different doulas. And even if, one of your friends are like, oh, I had this doula for my birth. And while, you love your friend, you trust your friend, they might be a good option for you. I think it's important to understand that there might be differences between your birth and their birth, and finding someone that fits you is super important, and getting that right connection can be super helpful, because hopefully there are doulas in your area that are, willing and ready to help mamas, and you have a selection to choose from. So, number one, I think it's really important to ask them why they became a doula. What got them interested in becoming a doula? What was that process like? How do you incorporate your own personal experience into how you show up in your work as a doula? And how do you, maybe establish a connection with the families? And does that have to do with why you became a doula? And really just kind of tying their why into why they became a doula, and understanding that. Because, for me, for example, I had an unplanned cesarean with my first. I really got exposed to the birthing world. I started going to my friends' births. I went to a home birth. I started geeking out about birth. And I just got totally hooked. And I wanted to know all that I possibly could. And I really wanted to dive into the work deeper. I started this podcast. I started meeting people in the birthing community. And I just knew doula work was something that I just couldn't escape and couldn't get away from. And something, honestly, I would be doing no matter what, because it just lights me up. It's something that I'm super passionate about. It's something that I love doing. And I think understanding why a doula that you're potentially going to have at your birth became a doula can be super empowering and super inspiring to hear, and also something to be aware of. Because honestly, too, a lot of the time people get into birth work because they have had bad experiences with the medical system, or they've seen things happen that they just particularly felt like there were gaps in care and there needed to be more done. And so they got into it because of something that they personally experienced needed fixing. And so I think, too, that can be important to understand, because maybe you're about to go through a very similar experience that they had gone through. And if they have not healed from that experience, if they have not truly worked on themselves to get through that and past that and have that be something that they feel great with, it could be super triggering for them. It could be something that is actually hard to support you in. So understanding their background and understanding their story and understanding why they became a doula can be super informative. It can be almost like a little icebreaker, getting to hear them talk and explain a little bit about themselves. And it can be really eye-opening to helping you understand how they're going to be there for you and how they're going to support you through this. And so then that brings us to question number 2. And I think this also might be something that you want to know right away, because it's obviously going to make a difference if you want them as a doula. And that is understanding their availability and if they would have a backup doula. So obviously you want to make sure that they are available for you around your estimated due date. And, do they have any upcoming commitments that might interfere with them attending your birth? So you need to know that. You need to understand, like, are you going to be available? Are you going to be there? You want to make sure that they're not on a trip multiple hours away when you go into labor. You want to make sure that they don't have another mom in that same time window that might potentially interfere with them being able to attend your birth. So really understanding their availability, what their backup doula policy is like. Do they have a backup doula? Can you meet their backup doula? What would that process be like? Maybe even also understanding how many clients they take per month, and if that's something that you feel comfortable with. Are they going to be able to give you enough attention if they have multiple clients? And are they going to be able to guarantee that they will be there when you need them? And, same with like postpartum care. If they're supposed to be giving you postpartum care and they get called to a birth, what does that look like? What is that like? How would that work? So really understanding their availability, how their process works, really understanding, how they prefer to be communicated, when you would start to have their services kick in, if they would be available for calls or any more consultations, or, do they have a certain number of prenatal appointments, and what does that look like? What would you expect as far as if you text them with a question, how quickly will they respond? And I think really understanding this and getting familiar with their availability and what that looks like is going to be super important to you. So with me, I make sure that I'm only scheduling enough births every month that I fully feel like I can take on and be there for each mom individually and be able to give them the attention and the level of availability and communication that they deserve. And also, I love to have at least 6 weeks fully knowing that we are pretty much typically in that pre-birth area, that we can dedicate 6 weeks of getting to know each other and working together and establishing a plan and preferences and communicating with each other. And then also, saying after 35 weeks, if you are good and clear to go and everything, if, whatever happens, then I can be there. Or definitely that 37-week mark, I am essentially on call. And so really understanding what that looks like with them and what you can expect, how long are they comfortable allowing you to be pregnant for? Are they comfortable with 41, 42 weeks, 42 plus, whatever it may be? Is that something that also might be triggering for them, or something that they don't feel comfortable with or available for? And so really understanding and communicating that and getting familiar with their preferences and availability. And number 3, I think it's super important to ask about what kind of experience they've had and what kind of training. So maybe asking how long they've been a doula, how many births they've attended, what kind of training or other sort of certifications have they had, and do they have experience with a similar type of birth that you are envisioning for yours? Have they seen a natural birth? Have they been to a home birth? Have they been to a hospital birth? What kind of doula certifications do they have? And I will say to this, doula certifications are not everything. I really feel like experience and passion for the work goes a lot longer than the actual certification, because there are some certifications that you can just get and say that you're a doula, and that is not going to equip you for really going through and being able to be there for a mom at their birth or in the postpartum period. And also, I feel like sometimes having someone who is not as experienced, they're going to be a lot more involved and passionate and intrigued by what's going on. They're going to want to perform better and show up more and really give you an amazing experience, so that you will refer them to a friend, or, want to have them as a repeat doula, or, really just be a little bit more eager to to do well and to support you. So kind of understanding what that experience has been like for them, and here when you ask them, trying to see how they respond and how they talk about birth. Have they been doing it for so long that they're just sort of, oh yeah, like birth is this, and it's whatever, and it's so easy, and you're gonna do fine, when you might be here like freaking out, having all of these questions and wondering, what everything is and how everything works, and maybe feeling like, oh, well, I don't want to ask these questions because they might not want to answer it, or you don't just feel aligned with how they discuss birth and what it's like to them. So I think in asking them, just like, again, like, how long have you been a doula? How many births have you been to? Getting an understanding of their response, and if that aligns with what you want to have as a doula, and what you want the person who is supporting your birth to be like. And then number 4, really understanding what their services are and what their support looks like. So, going back again, sort of to like all previous questions, and tying it in together, this might be something that is listed on their website or something that you've already seen. And typically it's kind of like, oh, 1 like initial meetup, 2 prenatal appointments, they're fully for your birth, a couple hours postpartum, maybe 1 postpartum visit if this is like a birth doula that you're hiring, something like that. Or like for postpartum, they might have different packages, the number of hours afterwards, things like that. So really getting specific, like maybe if you've already read those, kind of understanding like what that actually looks like and what kind of support you can expect during labor. Are they a lot more hands-on? What are their typical comfort measures or techniques? Do they help work with you beforehand to understand different movements or different, tricks or tips and things like that you can really learn from? Do they put specific items in their doula bag? Are they going to have a doula bag? Will they help you be packing your hospital bag or preparing your home for birth? What really are they assisting you with, and how are they helping create the birthing environment or the postpartum environment that you are envisioning or wanting? And really just understanding your birth preferences, and does this doula meet that requirement, and what does that look like? Maybe asking and seeing if they specialize in anything, or what their approach is with families during birth. Like, are they going to support your partner too? What does that look like? If you have other people in the room with you while you are birthing, how do they also help them? Are they going to help them? Are they strictly, nope, I'm there for you and that's it, and I'm not willing to help anybody else that comes into the room? Or are they going to be like, yeah, like I will, encourage your partner to go over and whisper words of encouragement to you. I will have them go over and maybe hold your hand and kiss your forehead when it seems like you need just a little bit of extra encouragement. And so, how is that looking? What are they doing? What is their relationship with medical staff? And again, like going back to, is that triggering for them? Do they not agree with doctors or midwives? And so if you have your doula there, is that going to cause tension, or what does that look like? Like, how do they react in stressful situations? And really just kind of going through what that might look like, and understanding how they would support you during whatever services you are hiring them for. And number 5, I think it's really important to ask your doula what their fees are and what their contract is like and what that policy is like, because this is super important. You need to understand, like, am I going to be able to budget for this? Am I going to be able to afford their services? And for me specifically, I post that right online. You can go on my website, you can see my prices laid out before you even speak to me, before we're even having a conversation. I'm putting that out there because I want to be open and honest and have you feel comfortable with what my services come to. And I think sometimes I'm not really sure why doulas don't post their fees. I don't know if they have different guidelines for different prices, or I think that would, like, honestly get confusing. But I think just being upfront and honest and saying what your prices are is super helpful, because, like when you're shopping at the grocery store and you're looking at like a box of pasta or something and you want to know, like, hey, how much is this? Like, can I afford this? Is this worth it? Can I put this in my shopping cart? I think when you're upfront with your costs, it's like, look, this is how much the fee is. And I think it's super valuable, honestly. Like, obviously, I feel like it is a reasonable cost because I'm not afraid to hide it. And I don't feel like I have to first give you a sales pitch or talk to you or make you feel like, wow, yeah, this is something that I totally want. And like, now we're vibing together and we're enjoying each other. And then I tell you my cost and you're like, whoa, that's a little higher than I expected, but I really like this person. I already met with them. I don't want to be rude. I think it just, puts it out there. And I think just establishing what their fees are and what you're expected to pay beforehand is super nice, because nobody wants to have services done and then, like, let's say you went and got a haircut and you have no idea how much that haircut's going to cost, and you get to the end and they've already done it and now they're like, that's $300, and you're like, what? Like, you just cut my hair. Like, what did I wouldn't have known. I don't know. I think it just like creates like awkward situations. And so just understanding what that is, what is their contract like? What's their terms of agreement? Do they even have an official contract? What does that look like? Maybe even asking, does it get covered by insurance? I think a lot of people ask this and wonder. And while in some cases, in some insurance situations, that might be true, but also most of the time you can be using like FSA, HSA, like fundings to be covering doula fees, but it's still not as common for insurance companies to be covering that. So really understanding, if this is something that you want, putting that money aside and understanding just how valuable and helpful it is to have a doula there. So those are 5 questions I feel like it's really super important to ask your doula. And really remember that, finding the right doula for you is it's more than just their experience and their skills and things like that. Those things are obviously like super essential and important in most cases, but it's also super important to feel comfortable and connected with them, because this is going to be someone who is a really big source of support for you. They have the potential to be someone who is there in such a vulnerable and transformative time of your life. So having that connection with them, having a relationship established with them is going to make that so much different. And not only taking the time to ask these questions and just hear how they respond to it, but really listening to your instincts when making these decisions, because you're going to know if this is somebody that you vibe with, that you connect with, that you are willing to spend hours with, that you are going to feel all the feels that you want to feel during that time. And will this person be able to help you get there? Will they be the source of empowerment and encouragement that you are looking for? So really take notice to how you're interacting with them. And could you spend a lot of time with them? Do you trust them? Do you feel like, oh, wow, this person put me at ease. I felt so comforted talking to them. I truly feel like we're going to have such a great time together, and I am ready to share my emotions with them, and I respect them, and I listen to their, opinion, and I really feel like we share similar viewpoints, and I know that they are going to be the person for me. And, that could be something just as simple as like, are they more like hospital or home birth? Does that align with the vision that you have? And are they going to be somebody that can support you in that? And maybe even kind of like, do they have similar hobbies as you? Ask them, like outside of doula work, like what are some other things that you like to do? Like what are some hobbies that you have? Like me personally, I love reading. I like statistics. I like, geeking out over the research and the evidence-based information that we're learning and reading different articles. And so that's mostly how I'm going to present a lot of information to you when we're working together. I will probably have a lot of material and suggestions on books and just different information. I will probably give you a podcast episode to listen to or something to really get you thinking. And I really want to thoroughly answer all of your questions. So is that something that they like? Is that something that you like? I like to garden. I have my little garden outside. We are doing that. And maybe I'll bring you some fresh basil or some freshly picked flowers from my garden. And is that something that sounds good to you? Is that like not a big deal for you? Is that not something that you're interested in? And really just understanding like different ways that you can connect with them and relate with them, because that's going to make the experience so much better, so much different. And you're really going to want to have that person there. You're going to get excited when they walk in the room. You're going to get excited to text them or call them when things happen. You're going to want to tell them and keep them updated and reach out to them. And so that's really something that, I think is good to have. But also, like, if that's not your vibe, if that's not what you're looking for, then find a doula that you are connected to and you do feel in alignment with, and you do feel like they're going to be there for you and give you that experience that you are looking for. Because you really have to ask yourself, what do you want out of a doula? Why do you want a doula? What are you expecting to get out of this experience? And how do you want to be cared for? So if you are out there looking for a doula now, just ask yourself a few questions. Ask yourself, how would I want a doula to answer this question before they actually answer the questions that you're going to ask them? And really have a clear direction of what you are looking for in the responses to these questions. Because that's what matters most, finding someone that you connect with, someone that you want there, and someone that you feel is in alignment with your birth plan, with your preferences, and with the journey that you are going on. So I hope this helped, and good luck along your journey of entering motherhood. If you are in the Greenville, South Carolina area and you're looking for a birth or postpartum doula, feel free to reach out to me. Or if you're also interested in virtual doula care, I have multiple packages set up for you to pick from. So what are you waiting for? If you're listening to this podcast, I know that we would connect with each other. I know that we would vibe together. If you have been listening to this whole episode, I would love to support you along your journey of entering motherhood. And I just want to say thanks, mamas. Thanks for listening in, and see you later. Thank you, mamas, so much for listening. Remember, you are a rock star. I believe in you. Let's doula this. Let's crank it up a notch and let's kick it into high gear together. Hit that subscribe button, share this episode with a friend, message me, email me, call me, beat me. You know how to reach me. We're doing this, mamas. I am so excited to catch you here next week. This is your one-stop go-to place for helping you find the resources you need to make the best choices for you and your family during pregnancy, birth, and most importantly, postpartum. See you later, mamas.